Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Spring crops are really starting to show some progress thanks to these days filled with sunshine. We begin with a couple of updates, starting with our Extension Canola Specialist, Josh Bouchon.
Well, compared to previous years, we're breaking dormancy about like normal. Some fields are breaking dormancy a little bit earlier than others, just depends on how much rain we go over the winter. A couple guys were lucky enough to get a couple rains this winter, so the crop's looking good. It's been growing vigorously last week, and we're starting to bolt. And some guys are still semi-dormant if they're a little bit drier, but we did lose some stands over the winter, kind of compared to last year.
In terms of management advice, what kind of things should producers be thinking about this time of year?
Just like always, we're out looking for bugs. Royer hit on army cutworms last week, which was excellent. We did see quite a few more of those this year than we have in previous years. We are starting to see some other worms, some diamondback moth larvae. They're still out there and they're chewing on the leaves, making shot holes in the leaves. Sometimes it's just kind of a layer of the leaf, so it looks kind of like window painting where you can almost see through it. But we're looking for diamondback moth larvae. We're looking for aphids from here to harvest. Once we get a little bit more mature, we're start looking for false chinch bugs and some variegated cutworms and some other things. So on top of bugs, if some farmers do still have weeds, if the plant started to bolt yet, or the main stem started to elongate, and you can kind of see the bud at the top. Once we start bolting, it's too late to spray a herbicide. We'll take a severe hit on yield, especially if we're using Roundup. Some say the Select and Assure might be a little bit easier on the crop, but in general, once we start bolting, it's too late to spray the herbicide. There are some guys that have a very thin or marginal stand that have quite a few weeds out there, where I'll still recommend going out there and hitting with the herbicide just to clean the field up, but they will take a hit on yield. So once we start bolting, the only other pesticides we'll be spraying from here to harvest will be an insecticide, more than likely. So far, I haven't seen too much pressures from blackleg or any other diseases, but we're watching for that as well.
And this time of year, you and the team get ramped up with your field tours. Talk about that a little bit.
Once again, we're going to be doing our statewide field tours starting third week of April, and we'll put a link on the website. Everywhere from southwest Oklahoma to northeast Oklahoma, predominantly north central Oklahoma. So we'll have about 14 tours set up. A producer can go to the nearest one he's closest to, and we'll spend about an hour and a half with the producers talking anything about canola production they want to know. So we look forward to that event each year. I think this is our fourth year to do it, and usually have pretty good turnouts.
It's a busy week for sure. And then closer to harvest, you'll have some harvest specific training. Talk about that.
This year we're trying something new. In joint with the Great Plains Canola Association, we're putting on some canola harvest clinics. We do have 4 locations planned for Oklahoma: Clinton, Canton, Kingfisher, and Pond Creek, starting the April 30th and going in about 2 weeks into May. Be looking for those as well. We're going to talk anything from staging the crop to know when to swath it, and then talk a little about the equipment itself, how to set the combine and so forth.
And we know last year was a tough year for both wheat and canola. Is the picture a little better this year, or too early to tell?
It's too early to tell. For the most part, we are setting yield. You can kind of see the size of the buds are kind of indicative on what our initial yield potential is. But what you've seen in canola in the past is it does compensate quite a bit for a lot of other different stresses. If we do get some April freezes, those apical buds and the meristematic buds lower down on the plant will put out new shoots, so it does compensate quite a bit. But for the original yield potential, it's being set right now.
And the way I understand it, this is the 10th canola crop growing right now in Oklahoma?
Yeah, we've been growing at OSU for about 12 years now, but this is probably the 10th year for producers to be growing it. So we've come a long ways in a decade, but we still have quite a bit more to learn.
Okay, definitely. Josh Bichon, thanks a lot. And now we want to get an update on wheat with SUNUP's Dave Deacon and our small grains extension specialist, Jeff Edwards.
Right now, as a whole, we look pretty good. We've had some moisture. The wheat has come out of dormancy. It's really greened up from those top dress nitrogen applications. So as a whole, it looks pretty good. Still short on moisture in northwest Oklahoma, living on borrowed time in southwest Oklahoma. So we look pretty good right now, but we're going to need some more rain. We're really just 3 or 4 80-degree days with 25-mile-an-hour winds away from the wheat going backwards and starting to turn blue. So if we continue to get this rainfall, these cooler temperatures, we're setting ourselves up for a nice wheat crop.
How are the planted acres compared to last year's crop?
They're off a little bit from last year. We're at about 5.1 million acres this year. I think a lot of our farmers, or several, did some double cropping last year, maybe planted some double crop soybean or grain sorghum. Some of those acres didn't get planted. Some of them went in late, and the wheat is kind of small coming out of dormancy. For those acres that are small, these temperatures in the 60s and 70s with moisture is just what that wheat needs to play catch up.
And what makes a good Oklahoma wheat variety? I mean, we have extremes. We have no rain, we have a lot of rain, temperatures all over the place.
In Oklahoma, a wheat variety has to do it all. So you take a variety like Duster. One of the reasons Duster has been such a success is because of its tillering ability. So that makes it a good grazing wheat, and it has the ability to compensate for drought and things like that because it produces so many tillers. And you balance that out with a variety like Ruby Lee that is kind of a racehorse variety. Has some drought tolerance, but really it excels in situations where it can really tap into some top-end yield potential. So what I like to see producers do is mix those acres. You don't put all of your eggs in one basket, and this year is a prime example of that. I think we will have some varieties rise to the top this year.
Last week we had Bob Hunger on talking about some rust moving into Oklahoma. Let's talk about some other things that may be coming up across the state.
Well, the rust is still the primary issue that we're worrying about, stripe rust and leaf rust. The conditions have continued to be favorable for both of those diseases. So this could be a year where we have quite a bit of leaf rust and stripe rust out there. Right now we're kind of in the interim. We're a little late for those early applications for a split fungicide application. The flag leaf will be out soon in southern Oklahoma, so in most circumstances we might be better off just to wait for a flag leaf application of a fungicide. Again, the key there, we talked about varieties, is knowing your variety. Ruby Lee being a prime example of a variety that really needs a fungicide many years. Something like Gallagher or Iba, two of our newer varieties, have a very good disease resistance package. You could probably get by without a fungicide on those. So know your variety and know its disease rating before you spray.
And you put out a blog on a regular basis. Let's talk about what's in the blog.
Well, we try and keep producers updated as far as foliar disease in the state of Oklahoma. We put a lot of Dr. Hunger's information on there. We update producers most recently on first hollow stem and just the overall condition of the wheat crop. If I get more than 2 or 3 calls about a problem such as green bugs or something like that, we try and get information out there on what to look for, what to scout for, and then links to a little more in-depth information. You can also access things like variety characteristics on that blog, so that's really helpful to know which variety or how your variety is going to behave.
Okay, thank you much, Jeff. We'll check in with you here in a couple weeks again, see how the crop's doing then. And for a link to that blog, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Weather systems continue to roll across our state. The one that came through between March 17th and March 20th brought moisture to every Oklahoma Mesonet site. We haven't had that many systems with such broad moisture. In south central and southeast Oklahoma, there were areas that received over an inch of rain, the green areas on the map. The darker blue colors indicate areas that had a ½ inch or more of rain. The lowest rainfall amount of 0.09 of an inch occurred at Tipton. East of there, Bernieville had the highest, 1 23/100 of an inch. So we've had rain across the state, just not as much as we need to break drought's hold on us. Systems moving through this winter have left winter wheat and canola crops in better shape than last year's winter crops. Our warmer days are pushing up soil temperatures. A 3-day average map from Sunday through Tuesday of 4-inch bare soil temperature shows the average reaching 60 for widespread locations across the state. Warm soil temperatures make for good germination of corn and other spring planted crops. Here's Gary with a look at our spring drought outlook.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everybody. We've had our first taste of big-time severe weather this spring, and it's necessary because we do need that rainfall. Whenever we get rain in Oklahoma in the spring, it usually comes with some bad things as well. So we'll have to take it. Now, taking a look at that first drought monitor map, we'll see just why we so much need that rainfall, even if it does come with severe weather. You can see most of western Oklahoma, including north central Oklahoma, spreading to the east, are now covered by that extreme to exceptional drought, the D3, D4, the two worst drought monitor categories. This is actually the worst looking drought map we've seen since late last spring, so not good news there. We definitely need the rainfall. So what do we see for the U.S. seasonal drought outlook? This is good through June 30th of 2015. Well, unfortunately, most of western Oklahoma is going to see that drought either persist or intensify. Now, some areas could see drought removal or even some drought improvement. Now, the areas with the persistence, those areas in brown, that's where the drought is at its worst right now with the worst soil moisture conditions. So with those two things put together, the drought where it is now and where it's expected to be as we enter July, we definitely need a good spring worth of rainfall, even if it comes with severe weather, I'm afraid. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We want to talk now about land values in Oklahoma with Roger Saz, an Ag Economics Extension Specialist. And Roger, you and your team study land values year-round. What kind of things do you research in particular?
Well, we look at the patterns and current trends in the land markets here in the state of Oklahoma. We look at the factors behind some of the behavior behind the markets in general, and we just try to anticipate where the markets have been, where they're at now, and where they may be in the time frame that we're looking at down the road. We feel that critical analysis and good information is very important for farmers and ranchers out there, especially those that are wishing to expand their operations, and also for those non-farm investors that are thinking about purchasing some farmland.
To just kind of arm themselves with the numbers and the information.
That's right.
Now, in terms of the latest numbers and what Oklahoma looks like, give us a picture.
Well, the picture for at least Oklahoma, we've got some numbers at least through the calendar year 2013, and the trend has been up overall, and it's been up over the last several years. In 2013, I think cropland was, we had some strong trends. That was primarily due to some strong farm earnings. And even in the pasture land, it was also quite strong, and that was due to the strong cattle economy as well. And where we're at now, at least through 2014, it's a little hard to say. I think we've got some mixed expectations and a picture out there, because despite the fact that the cattle economy is still strong, I think the overall price levels in the grains complex is down versus where it has been over the past several years. And I think the markets are adjusting to those new expectations overall. One thing that we've got going for us is that interest rates are very low, and that I don't see any sizable increase in those interest rates. And so they've been low, they've been stable, and that makes borrowing costs really very inexpensive, and and really quite easy for a number of farmers that are wishing to debt finance.
In terms of land value, has the oil and gas industry had an impact in the last few years?
Yes, it has. It's provided some added liquidity to active farmers and ranchers out there that are wishing to expand their farming operations, and also for those non-farm investors that are thinking of investing in some farmland as opposed to alternative, say, fixed investments that don't offer much of a return on their money. And so, yes, those individuals that have received those monies from oil and gas interest, and it's not a level playing field. You've got the money in the hands of a few, but where those few players are at, they have had an impact on the market, and it's been a positive impact because they've added to the spirited bidding of some of these sales tracts that have come up on the market.
And for landowners or those interested in the topic, you have some resources available through the Ag Economics Department.
Yes, we do. We've got a website. It's a land values website that we maintain, and we update that on an annual basis and when those numbers are readily available. And also, I think the viewers out there can also check in with the USDA. And they also update land values and also land rents on an annual basis, not only for Oklahoma, but for all 50 states. And then also, I think they could check in with the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, and they conduct their own surveys on land values within their district, of which Oklahoma is a part of.
So great information available to help people in business planning and all sorts of things regarding land values.
You bet, yeah.
Okay, Roger, thank you very much. And for links to those websites that Roger mentioned, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Well, the calendar says that it's spring, and these nice mornings and warm afternoons certainly seem to echo that particular thought. But let's remember that what our cows are out on, if they're on one of these warm season pastures, such as native or Bermuda grass, that grass is still dormant, and it's very low in quality, very low in protein, very low in energy. And it's extremely important that we remember that we don't want these cows to lose body condition between calving and the start of the upcoming breeding season. Research was done here at Oklahoma State University that clearly illustrated that point. You see, what they looked at was a set of cows that they had fed to be in about a body condition score of a mid-0.5. Decent body condition at the time of calving. Half of the cows were fed to maintain that body condition until the breeding season was well underway. The other half of the cows were allowed to lose enough weight and body condition to where they dropped one full body condition score going into the breeding season. As they followed those cows through that breeding season, what they found was quite a difference in the pregnancy rates when they checked them the next fall. The cows that maintained body condition through the breeding season rebred at a very nice 94% clip, whereas those that were allowed to lose one full score between calving and the start of the breeding season rebred at 73% or a 21% calf crop loss. So I think it's extremely important that we continue to make sure that there's plenty of energy and protein in front of these cows, even though the grass is not providing it, that we've got good enough quality hay and some energy supplement available for those cows through the rest of March and April until these grasses come on strong enough to provide the energy and protein that the cows need. I realize that feed is expensive, but it's certainly going to be a lot more expensive to lose 21% of a calf crop at a time when calf prices are still rather strong. So let's maintain body condition on these cows between calving and start of the breeding season and get that higher breed up next fall when we check them, and certainly it'll help our bottom line. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
It's been a week since we've talked with Kim Anderson, and Kim, there's been a little bit of variability in the wheat market.
Well, last week we talked about that spring rally, and that rally continued into this week. You look at the KC July wheat contract, go back to the 13th, it was at $5.44. By the 23rd, it was up to $5.80, and then of course it backed off later in the week. On the 25th, it was $5.68, and then it was down 10 or more cents in the latter part of the week.
And it's almost like it's been 2 steps forward, 1 steps back. What's causing this to happen?
Well, I think the 3 main factors are, the fund, the positions on the funds have in the market, the dollar index, or the dollar's value relative to other currencies, the weather and the crop conditions. Looking at those fund positions on the 13th, you had a little over 63,000 net short for the funds. On the 23rd, they had bought about 11,000 contracts, and they were down to 52,000, a little above that for short positions. But they sold back in the market the next 2 days, and on the 25th, they were short 60,000 plus contracts. If you look at the dollar index, or the value of the dollar relative to other currencies, on the 13th, it was 100.7. On the 23rd, it was 97.3. In other words, it fell about 4%. A little over that, and then on the 25th it was just slightly lower. So what you see there is, as prices went up, you had the funds buying the contracts, and I think that's part of that reason. Also, you had that dollar value going down, which made our wheat less expensive on the foreign market, increased demand there. So I think the big factors there were the funds and the dollar. Of course, we can talk about crop conditions and what's going on there.
Now, kind of turning the corner a little bit, the USDA released their planting intentions report yesterday. What was in that report?
If you look at wheat, just looking at pre-release estimates, which are going to be the measure of what the market's going to do, that estimate was at 55.8 million acres compared to last year's 56.8 million, so about 1 million less acres of wheat this year. I think that's going to be positive for wheat. Of course, corn's important. The pre-release estimate was 88.7 million acres compared to 90.6 last year, or down about 1.9 million acres.
Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Joining us now is Rodney Holcomb, a food industry economist here at OSU. And Rodney, today we want to talk about farmers markets in Oklahoma, and let's sort of begin by sorting out the difference between an Oklahoma grown and a regular farmers market.
Okay, yeah, as part of the local food movement that we've seen the last 10 or 15 years, a huge number of farmers markets have popped up all around the state of Oklahoma. And some of them are specifically and only Oklahoma grown produce and food items. Others may have food products that come from outside the state. So the State Department of Agriculture, Food and Forestry set up a registration program, and they refer to those farmers markets as Oklahoma grown. Those farmers markets carry only Oklahoma food items. So we have some, 64 I think is the number right now of Oklahoma grown registered farmers markets, but there are many more farmers markets than that around the state.
Besides produce, sometimes at the farmers market we see meat, eggs, and other items. What should shoppers be thinking about in terms of those items?
Okay, very good question. And the shoppers need to pay attention to the specific farmers markets goals and guidelines for their vendors. Some farmers markets don't require or don't allow any of those types of products. They may be very specific. We want produce and produce only. Others open the door to have meat items. If you're following all the rules and regulations to provide a refrigerated or frozen meat product, they will allow farm fresh eggs. And in some cases, some farmers markets will even allow processed food items to be brought in. So that's where you can get your jams and jellies and pumpkin butter, things like that, bakery products. Some will allow that as well. So it really depends on the farmer's market that you're going to. And you really need to check that farmer's market. A lot of them have gotten really good about having websites that will tell what they have and what they expect from their vendors. So you can go to their specific websites and find more information about what they will allow or the standards to which they hold their vendors.
As a shopper, what should I look for in a farmer's market when I'm trying to decide which one I should go to?
It really comes down to what do you want when you go to a farmer's market to buy food. If you're going there because you want to buy something that's local, that's maybe produced in the same county as where you live, then you want to ask the farmers there, is this your product? Is this something that you grew on your farm? and what were the practices that you used to grow that product. In some cases, for example, the Oklahoma grown farmers markets, you'll typically have the producer who brought this produce from their farm to the farmers market. They're the one selling this product. You can ask them all sorts of questions. In some of the other farmers markets, you may have products that came from other parts of the state, maybe outside the state, or maybe you have an agent of the farmer who's there. They may or may not know all the information. So it really comes down to what are you looking for when you go to the farmer's market. Is it just something that's fresh? Is it something that that you're wanting to buy that was really produced local? Those really play a role in the questions that you ask the vendor.
And when I've been to the farmer's market, it's fun to talk with the farmer about some of those very subjects. And now, finally, how can a person find registered Oklahoma-grown farmers markets?
As I said, there are farmers markets all around the state of Oklahoma. But if you want to be sure that you're going to one that has only Oklahoma-grown items, then go to okgrown.com and you can find a list of the registered OK-grown farmers markets around the state.
Okay, Rodney, great information about farmers markets. And for a link to that list that Rodney mentioned, just go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. We want to spend a little bit of time today talking about jack stands.
So a quick, dirty, easy method to make a jack stand is just like we've got shown here.
Looks kind of like a rocket, but it's not. You just split it in thirds up to a certain height so that you've got enough that you can flare the bottoms out to make a stand.
And you can make this as complicated as you want to. I mean, you could put adjusting bolts on here and raise it up and down, and then you probably want to tie these together once you get them flared properly. But basically, you measure around the pipe, divide by 3, mark it, do a straight line, torch it as high as you want, and off you go.
Yeah, and like I said, securing the bottom so it doesn't flare out on you depending on how much weight you're going to set on it, but it gives you a lot of options as far as holding stuff up, as well as maybe putting a roller on it to help out with that table saw or other saws.
So that's a quick, easy method to make yourself a jack stand in your shop.
We'll see you next time on Shop Stop.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. Remember, you can see us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu and on social media. Thanks so much for everyone who sent in pictures this week, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.